myself. Shame on that.
Leave your humanity outside. Just a hard wall that you hit up against.
Shit is always going to clog pipes. We're in the business of unclogging consciousness pipes. We have certainly shared our share of institutional betrayal. We also exist in a weirdly free space in order to be able to communicate these thoughts because there are group parameters, aspects of institutional involvement that people may be experiencing, like a job place, church to which you belong, family, different things like that. And we each in our own way, Nadine and myself, tend to exist in groups, through groups, outside of groups. There is something to be said for being socially transcendent in some way, because you also maintain a view on the world that is necessary if you choose to do the work of change, the work of evolution, the work of revolution, the work of combating systemic oppression, the work of being able to say that's not okay to power, speaking truth to power. All those things are a function of what we have intentionalized for our lives, but also this stream, right? This experience of Humanist Nightmare Fuel is intended to be more than, ASMR that you can place in the background while you're doing other stuff. And I mean, by all means, do that. We welcome that, yeah. Right? But there's stuff that can sink in and hopefully activate something that you haven't thought about in a long time, whatever that may be. A thought that you once had and then had to shove down deep in order to make things work at work, with family, with your golf buddies, whatever the case is.
In school.
Whatever. Yeah, in school, whatever the case is. So here's the thing. I was working on some stuff for some other things that I have to do, right? It's sort of, this is with healthcare practitioners. So the idea of trauma, it's always trauma. That's all we're ever talking about. But it's the trauma that those individuals experience in healthcare spaces. They require, for continuing medical education credits, they require sometimes multiple choice questions, like that, and you have to answer, and then you provide the answer, so that they put it all in their end of conference quiz. And if you pass it, which everybody does, they're not, this isn't like advanced physics, it's just like, my thing was which of these things is not an outcome of physician burnout, it's called that kind of trauma inducing, it's commonly known in the field as physician burnout, and it listed it A through E, and it's A was right, and then my thing was A is correct. B through E are all things that actually happen because of institutional trauma. Physician burnout, which is institutional trauma and healthcare, right?
Spoiler alert.
Spoiler alert, right? So I was, I'm that's the question that I submitted. I submitted another one. That's the one that was accepted. I submitted another one, and I'd come to know the lead person, who's kind of dealing with the intellectual structure of the whole conference. And he's a physician. He was just well, Dr. Syed, this question is, fairly generalized, and it's not really specific enough, and something he said, rigorous enough or something. I'm okay. So the one I gave was kind of hard. It's you have to be paying attention. So fine. I responded and I said, "Oh, hey, thanks for the clarification. I think this one will be more pointed," and I kind of just sent that, right? Good. Except for like 45 minutes after that, I felt like this feeling, this like just like I've been judged, and I'm not smart enough, and I'm not good enough, and I'm not able to do the rigor work, like I'm just a big, and you call things like imposter syndrome. I was in it, right? And I was just like,
Right.
so that thing, which wasn't like as heavy as I'm feeling in response, right?
Mm-hmm.
I'm made into that heavy
Mm-hmm.
because there have been some people. I was in a position and I held, or it was at the time where I was just gaining my doctoral degree. I was like completing that work. And my supervisor in this space did not hold that degree. She held a master's degree, and she was acting out some kind of inferiority complex with me. So she felt, people always say, oh, she was threatened. Like I worked there for like 7 years. So I knew this person for a long time. And
Yeah.
I dealt with shit for 7 years, like constantly just knowing every step I take, she was going to kick me in the balls in some way.
Mm-hmm.
And yet I had to continue to like work and deal. But, it was really trauma inducing, right? It sucked. Like I have this thing now with like authority and like, like I'm like,
Yeah.
oh God, like don't, it's like, and it's not just like, oh no, the problem is that I'm not like, oh no, I want to like fight them then. And I'm like, actually, you stupid fuck. Like, you don't know what you're talking about. And I know what this, yeah. And I think Nadine knows this well about me. So I want to fight them like, you stupid fuck. I've put
I
in the
know
work. I
too.
have this, shit. Like, and then I sound like the asshole who's like, you know, I have this degree, but
Yeah.
I do, and it's unlike every other fucking person who's like, I'm a doctor of something, but I'm gonna talk to you about men's activism or something. It's like on YouTube, like I'm
Yeah.
not like I'm a doctor, and it's like no, I'm speaking about always, especially in this particular space, always speaking in some capacity related to developmental method issues, ideals, problems, things that we face macro socially in the community, individually, intrapersonally, so I'm sticking to that. So, I wanted to fight this guy because I do know what I'm talking about, and that guy is out of my field. And so I was like going through all that, and I'm like, holy shit, I'm dealing, this is like in the definition of it rather than the diagnosis of it. In the definition of the wording, this is post trauma stress I am feeling. And people feel this in multiple ways, in different capacities, having been
Yeah.
traumatized over years. Hence why we're beginning this series of, because I think it's going to be a
Oh
longer
yeah.
discussion over
There's a lot of
time.
trauma.
There's religious trauma syndrome, institutional trauma, which could again be religion, or it could be a church. It could be
Mm-hmm.
education or the school you went to. It could be labor or the job that you have. It could be healthcare or the fact that you can't secure health insurance, or coverage or anything. All
And
of
the
those
thing is,
things. Yeah.
it's usually all of the
Multiple. Yeah.
above.
All of the above.
Like,
That was the question I submitted. Which of these things will kick your ass institutionally? All of the above is the answer.
exactly. All of the above, because even when you're individually experiencing something in your life like that, it every time I can draw it back to we do right here. We draw it back to what happens in my life, your life. We draw it back to like what is it, the macro social, like that feeling that you were talking about of like I want to fight this dude because it's almost like you react even differently or even more vigorously than when the first trauma occurred. you fight harder because, or feel like fighting harder because it's like I didn't really get to, you know what I mean? I didn't get to defend
Make
myself.
that person
Like,
suffer.
yeah, exactly. I was gonna build up to that, but yeah, exactly. Jump right in there, rip that band-aid off. Yeah, like I didn't get to get even.
I mean,
Justice
I
did
want
not occur. Like
to
I
like
didn't, all that stuff.
scarlet letter Robert Chillingsworth, like psychological and emotional suffering this fucking person.
Right.
And yes, folks, I like to help people. It's just, I mean, God, some people, man.
Yeah, but and like that same feeling, I think that is when you get stuck there, it makes you, it really makes it hard to go to these places, which is like anywhere. It's hard to go take your kids to school or go in to talk to anybody at school. It's hard to go to the hospital, to the doctors, and actually advocate for yourself and believe in what you're saying. It's hard to go to the DMV. It's, well, shit, that is hard, period. No matter what. But it's hard, just any place that has that same chemical smell and that same like it's
Yeah.
just like any place that represents that first,
Yeah.
or set of times that you got fucked over.
It's important to make a distinction. Like you're saying, you were damaged, fucked over, burned by, and you've listed different institutions. But there's going to be a lot of people who are like, well, everyone's got to deal with bureaucracy. And it was pretty crazy that earlier on, I was speaking with one of your children, one of your daughters, who's like young, but she asked, because we were talking, asked about bureaucracy,
Mm-hmm.
right? And I was like, interesting, right? And bureaucracy is definitely a system of controls that is in place, always connected with the dominant social hegemony, which, folks, hate to disappoint you who may be watching this, but it's white supremacy that runs this nation. It is a fabric of white supremacy that is interwoven in ways you can't even tell through everything. If that bureaucracy is in place, fueled by white supremacy, it is most certainly more viciously damaging to people of color, and it is much gentler on other people. So, what some people might consider bureaucracy, I want you, Nadine, now to specify what trauma in those spaces means, why you feel like a cold sweat walking into a bank, right? We're not talking about hassle.
No, it is, the cold sweats is about it's like if you don't think of it about it as going to the DMV, but you think about it as going to, it's going to be different for everyone. So I'll just say it in this very plain way: a place where they have psychologically tortured you before, like, you know what I mean, like,
Yeah.
that is why the cold sweats. You're trying to prepare, like, maybe they won't beat me this time, maybe they won't talk about how I brought my kids and they're distracting, maybe they won't make me feel like I'm scum because I'm asking for this, maybe they won't tell me go to the place down the road, up the street, 5 miles this way on the right, and then for that place to tell me to go back to that place, you know just different things. Maybe they won't take away the thing that I need to fuel me to even to get to any of these places. Maybe they, and then that's to have something given and then snatched away if you don't fill this out in time. If you don't, without a real, if you don't have a piece of paper from a doctor to say that you need help with these things, there isn't an understanding of like humanity.